There are alarming figures out this morning showing almost 3/4 of the people on dating apps in Australia have been subject to harassment and abuse online. Nearly 10,000 people were surveyed as part of the research, with 40% saying they'd received unsolicited sexual images.
A third say they've been subjected to either sexual assault, coercion, drink spiking or stalking in person. The research paints a shocking picture for everyone who's looking for love online, and Steph Ferrier is across all of the details this morning for us. Steph, good morning. This is a really sobering read.
Yes, good morning, Mads. It certainly is pretty grim reading. This is the report from the Australian Institute of Criminology. They surveyed almost 10,000 dating app users aged between 18 and 54 last year. And you can imagine that the details within this report and from those 10,000 people are replicated so much because last year alone, it's estimated worldwide around 300 million people downloaded online dating apps. Now, some of those grim statistics include almost 3/4 of people that were surveyed experienced some form of online sexual violence or abuse in the past 5 years. 69% of them experienced sexual harassment, so that was the main problem, but 40% of them were also sent unwanted sexual images. And almost a half were also subjected to abusive and threatening language. Nearly 20% had non-consensual sexual images taken of them, and in some cases there were threats to actually distribute those as well. And 27% were stalked online. And in just some of the other statistics that we hear is that around 6 in 10 of the users reported multiple forms of online sexual abuse and violence. And alarmingly, we also heard that almost all of them, 96% of those people who experienced violence or sexual intimidation in person had also been treated in the same way online as well. And some of those in-person things that you were talking about include situations where people were subjected to unwanted sexual advances, stalking, having their drinks spiked, and also being coerced into sexual acts when they didn't want to.
And another real standout from the report is that LGBTQIA+ Australians have really been disproportionately impacted.
Absolutely. This survey also looked at the experience of people in those areas. Unfortunately, it didn't look at transgender people, and so that is one of the limitations that the Institute of Criminology says. However, just in terms of the LGBT+ community, it found that they were much more likely to experience both online and also in-person abuse as well. In terms of the online for women, it was around 62%, which was so much higher than those in the heterosexual male community. And we heard just a little while ago from the Institute of Criminology about just how shocking some of those statistics were.
While we found that 34% of all of our sample experienced some form of abuse in person, in the LGBT+ women sample, that was 50%, whereas it was 27% for heterosexual men. So some really quite concerning levels for the LGBTQI+ community.
What does the Institute of Criminology suggest needs to happen here, Steph?
Well, it didn't talk about the users themselves. However, it did have some pretty strong words in terms of those that run these social media dating apps and the app developers themselves, because they say that there is a lot to do with making sure that people understand how to report these sorts of situations when they happen, but not that much to stop it from happening in the first place. And there's the E-commerce Safety Commissioner that has come up with some really good policies to be able to build some protections into some of these online apps, which is what the Institute of Criminology wants to see adopted across the board. They're things like better availability for people to be able to actually report these instances when they occur. Also to stop people, those perpetrators, from being able to cancel their accounts and then join back up again. And that apparently happens in about half of those cases. devices, and also as well to use artificial intelligence to censor some of those prohibited or explicit images as well.
Very sobering reading this morning. Thanks very much, Steph. And if this story has raised any issues for you, you can get help by calling the National Sexual Assault, Domestic and Family Violence Counselling Service on 1800 RESPECT. That's 1800 737 732.